Hello, Walter Buckley here. From VHS tape to SD card. E is for beacons, ever-changing technology. It's all an illusion. So what we have here is the digitising department of Beacon Productions. And my soul, it shows all the history of Beacon in just one little area. From the old VHS tapes of the 90s, they're being captured through this camera that Beacon used through the 2000s and onto a computer to be digitised here in 2022. And believe it or not, this little deck down here, that is the original deck that all of the 1990s Beacon productions were edited on. I say, better let this carry on. Now, in the depths of the woods, we find this, a duplicate of Beacon's original camera, the Beacon 1. This is a sharp Zoom 8 camera, and we filmed all of Beacon's productions in the early to mid 1990s. It used VHS, well, it used VHS-c, which is a compact version of VHS. It was first came out for domestic use in 1985. Look at this little dinky VHS tape. Some of you may be wondering, how do you get that to play in a VHS machine? Well, you get yourself an adapter, and you're going to like this bit of magic here, because I think this is wonderful. You open the adapter, you put the tape into the adapter, it goes around the spools, you close it and listen out to that wonderful retro sound. And the tape grows to a full VHS size. Oh, it's just wonderful. It was brilliant for Beacon, but we had to move with the times. From VHS, we then moved to Super VHS and a much smaller camera. The tapes were the same size. Super VHS had been developed by JVC in 1988, and we got swayed along with it being this superior quality. To be honest with you, we didn't really notice much different to VHS, but we stuck with Super VHS right up until the late 1990s and into the early 2000s. But then it was really time to embrace the digital age. It was time for Beacon to move into the digital format, which had been around since 1995. We waited until 2001 before we were prepared and could afford the bally things. This was the pride of Beacon. This camera saw us through for several years in the early 2000s using mini DV format. This is a DV in and DV out camera, so it means as well as playing from the camera our footage onto the computer to edit with Premiere Pro, we could also copy back onto it and use it almost like an old VHS recorder. Haha, it was wonderful. Well, we went through lots of different mini DV cameras before we then came to this. £2,500 apparently, the wonderful Sony VX2000. Wonderful camera. You may remember it. It filmed loads of Stephen Browns and doorstops and the Parsons, and we used this right up into the early 2010s before we then moved over to the wonderful DSLR cameras, the Canons, the 7Ds. Oh, Ken Mode, I remember you well. We used to credit sound as Ken Mode and people thought it was a real person. It's actually a microphone. This microphone, Beacon's original. I mean, we haven't used it for years, but well, the shape of the microphones are exactly the same. They just do it a little bit better. As do the lights as well. We've moved on to these wonderful digital lights which are ecologically and economically sound. Something my father would have been very proud of. My father, that is Walter Buckley, the famous explorer who once got trampled on by a herd of highly strung elephants. You remember him? Well, you may remember this. This is a redhead, industry standard lighting that we used to use, and we used to sweat our bollocks off with it. We also used to use theatre lights, and that was pretty hot too, but no more. Beacon as a club has had to move with the times, and thanks to local funding, we have with this, the Beacon 1. What a wonderful toy. It's a bit like a computer. But this is the club's first 4K camera, so it's going to be able to keep up with the times, hopefully. It's all very expensive stuff. But to maintain a club like this, Beacon has had to keep up with ever-changing technology. We must be careful of this stuff. Ta-ta for now. Wah!